Over the past 5 years, I've tried a total of about 40 different gaming mice. I tried about 30 in between 2016 and 2018 as I was trying to go pro in CSGO, and slowed down in the past 3 years by trying about another 10. And while going through 10 different mice in 3 years is still a lot, I'm just that kind of person who's always looking for better. Now, almost all those mice were wired mice. Not because I wanted to use a wired mouse, I didn't, but because I had no choice. I hated having to deal with cables even with a cable bungee. But back then, wireless mice for competitive gaming was garbage. Until this came out. This is the G Pro Wireless. This, along with the Razer Viper Ultimate, were the best 2 wireless gaming mice on the market when they released. It really just depended on what shape you liked more or which brand you were loyal to. They both had decent battery life, they were light, even with their battery, and most importantly, they had extremely low input lag, all while having amazing sensor tracking with no smoothing or acceleration. Fast forward to today, and now we have this, the Logitech G Pro X Superlight. We also have the glorious Model O wireless, and I was going to make a comparison between all of these wireless flagship mice, but since mine had a major connection issue, I'm in the process of getting it RMA'd, so I'll do a comparison between all these mice in the future. For now, let's talk about the Superlight, starting with the similarities between this and its older brother. On the outside, the G Pro Wireless and the Superlight are pretty much identical. They have the same scroll wheel, side buttons, left and right mouse buttons, and overall shape. Now, even though the Superlight looks pretty much the same as the G Pro Wireless, there are a couple of differences underneath. Literally. There's a lot more PTFE feet on the Superlight compared to the G Pro Wireless, which is supposed to make it glide smoother. It also includes an extra puck with more PTFE material on it, and while I thought it was supposed to make the mouse glide easier, it ended up adding some drag, so I just got rid of the puck altogether, saved 2 grams of weight, and had a smooth, buttery glide. And while it does glide smoother than a G Pro Wireless, that could also be an effect of the mouse just being much lighter, pushing into the mousepad less. It weighs 63 grams, which is a whopping 21% lighter than the G Pro Wireless, and somehow it manages to be this light without having holes all over it. Imagine if it did have holes. Anyway, going from the G Pro Wireless and the Razer Viper Ultimate to the Superlight gave me the same feeling I had a few years ago when I replaced my 100-gram HyperX Pulsefire Surge with my G Pro Wireless. The difference is drastic. So drastic, in fact, that when I go back and forth between the Superlight and the G Pro Wireless, the G Pro Wireless feels heavy now. So then, what did Logitech do to make this so much lighter? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, they removed these side buttons on the right side of the mouse. So while the Superlight is technically a right-handed mouse, it still has a symmetrical shape, so if you're a lefty, you can unbind the left side buttons so you don't accidentally activate them with your pinky. If you do end up doing that, as long as you rest your pinky as low as I do, then you don't even realize the left side buttons are there. Also, these side buttons are not swappable like the G Pro Wireless. I understand why they removed the right side buttons, because removing stuff reduces weight, but I'm not sure why they removed the ability to swap the side buttons out. Maybe it would have increased weight? I don't know. Number 2 on the weight savings, they removed the RGB. The G Pro Wireless has an RGB G logo and 3 RGB DPI indicators. The Superlight, on the other hand, has a silver painted G logo and 1 LED which tells you your battery status when you turn the mouse on, and the color to indicate what DPI setting you're on. Weirdly enough, even though it has a DPI indicator light, there's no DPI switcher on the bottom of the mouse. You can only control your DPI through the G-Hub software, so I have no clue why they kept this LED. Sure, the battery status indicator is nice to some people, but I think it would have just been best to get rid of the LED completely to save a few extra grams, since I feel like the LED is pretty much useless now. And while we're on the subject of DPI, it uses Logitech's new Hero 25K sensor, which feels just like the old 16K sensor that my G Pro Wireless uses. So the whole no acceleration, smoothing, and filtering claim still stands true. I'm not sure what the differences are between this new sensor and the old one, but I couldn't tell of any. Needless to say, because of how light it is and how good the sensor tracks, it's super easy for me to flick left or right and rip people's heads off their shoulders. I also had no lift-off distance craziness where the mouse spazzes when you lift it up and put it back down, so all in all, great sensor. Side note, can we stop doing this thing where companies brag about how high of a DPI their mouse can go? 16,000 DPI, 25,000 DPI, woohoo! No one cares. No one wants to deal with a mouse that moves like this. Anyway, next I want to talk about the battery life. It has an advertised 70 hours of battery life, but I don't think that really gives you an idea of how good that is. So let me give you some perspective. I'm on my computer about 8 hours a day with a mixture of gaming, consuming media, and doing something productively. So based on math, that means that this mouse should last about 9 days before needing to be recharged. That's pretty good, but it's also a lie. Based on my experience, I can go about 2 whole weeks before needing to recharge this puppy. I almost got you, Logitech fanboys. You guys are about to go crazy. What do you mean it's a lie? Logitech doesn't lie, they're the best. Are you sure about that? Because for some reason, Logitech thought it was a good idea to still include micro USB. Like, come on. Not only did this come out in late 2020, but there are plenty of other Logitech products with USB-C. So Logitech, we know you're more than capable of including it to your flagship mice and keyboards. Don't be like Apple holding tightly to their dear Lightning connector. Okay, next let's talk about this shape. As I said in the beginning, it's basically the G Pro wireless, so if you're familiar with how that feels, this will feel right at home. If you're not though, the mouse is a medium-sized mouse measuring at 125mm long, 45mm tall at its tallest point, and 63.5mm wide at its widest point. I have medium-sized hands at about 4 inches wide, 7 inches tall from my wrist to the tip of my index finger, and 7.5 inches tall from my wrist to the tip of my middle finger. And I'm able to hold the Superlight comfortably with both claw grip and fingertip grip, but I found it to be a bit too short to hold it with a palm grip for long periods. The left and right mouse buttons make a very satisfying sound and have a very low actuation force of about 47 grams. For some context, my Razer Viper Ultimate requires about 60 grams of force. So the Superlight is very easy to actuate with very little force, but it's not too easy to where you're accidentally clicking them all the time. Also, because a lot of people have been asking me, no, I haven't had any issues with double clicks on my G Pro wireless, and I don't expect that to be the case with the G Pro X Superlight. Lastly is the software. It's controlled by Logitech's G Hub software, which is... it's pretty meh. It's not bad, and to be fair, there isn't much you can do with a mouse other than change what each button does and change the RGB, which this mouse has none of. But there's been a couple of times where the software takes up like 95% utilization of my Ryzen 9 5950X, which freezes my PC and makes 0 sense. Reopening the software does fix it, but it happens somewhat often and I would just like for it to never happen. So with all that said, should you spend your hard-earned $150 on a mouse? Well, it depends. Just like with 240Hz monitors or even 360Hz monitors, this mouse is set out to be the king of esports, and I don't doubt it. But that is a niche kind of scene. Though I would have paid money to get this mouse back in my aspiring pro days, and that's a crowd that Logitech is going for. It's literally a much lighter G Pro wireless with better feet for a smoother glide. And since the G Pro wireless was already one of the best gaming mice in the world when it came out, it's hard to not see how this can be better. Now, if you're just a casual player or don't even play FPS games, I don't think you'll be able to take advantage of this mouse. I think you should just get something like the Model O wireless or something around that price because it really doesn't matter what you get. But if you just want an extremely light mouse that's wireless, or you're an aspiring pro, or even a pro that needs extremely precise mouse movements and you're looking for something light, wireless, with a sensor that is extremely accurate, then look no further than this. Your move, Razer.